How's everybody doing today? Good time to lower the music there. So thanks a lot, everybody, for being patient with me. I've had a lot on my plate. And so having to bump things around and shuffle things around has kind of been my MO as of late. So anyway, I just like to say thanks for your guys' patience. I know I keep kind of putting talks up and then pulling them down and putting them up and then bumping the time frame. But my life is pretty fluid right now. So thanks, guys, for having patience with that. And I'm going to take some time and kind of analyze my situation and see how, how feasible these live streams are going to be. And might just, like I kind of hinted in the back, just go back to just doing the videos straight on YouTube. And I'm actually have been kind of struggling with the idea of just getting rid of social media altogether and just remaining on the YouTube platform. Instagram's kind of starting to bug me a little bit. So I don't know. I might just scale back some of my social media presence and just stick it out on the tube. And so that this might be the only place you guys will be able to reach me through DM or whatever. So when that happens, I'll make sure you guys have plenty of notice and it'll be easy to get a hold of me. And anybody that's tried to reach out to me on Instagram will know that I'll just give my number freely to anybody. If you need my number, you want to stay in contact with me, or you have questions, by all means, reach out to me. I'll give you my number because sometimes it's arduous typing messages and all that shit, and I really just prefer to just have a 15 or 30-minute conversation with somebody and just kind of get through the nuts and bolts of whatever their questions are. So, you know, that being said, I wanted to speak on a couple things too, with the breeding discussion that we're going to have today. I want to be really clear that before we like put anybody on blast publicly, we got to make sure that it wasn't user error with whatever your experience was with those beans. And so I might be kind of jumping the gun here with this, but I really think it's important that we kind of start this on the right foot. That I do want to talk about exposing certain elements of the industry that are coming out, but I don't necessarily mean exposing certain individuals, which, you know, maybe I did mean that at first, but I really would rather not go down that road. And I think that it'd be better to expose the kind of practices that we want to see disappear, and especially with all these this new what I would consider new breeders on the market. So yeah, and when we get into that, I definitely I want to make sure that we're not just putting somebody on blast. If your room isn't on point, or you've been growing for less than a couple of years, and you had beans that hermied on you, we want to make sure that it wasn't light leaks in your room, or it wasn't your fault, right? Before you start putting a seed company on blast or a certain individual on blast. You know, so let's kind of handle this tactfully. And like I said, I'm not going to use any names, you know, even though I have several in mind. I just don't want to go that route. I'd rather just kind of discuss about what to avoid, what I would avoid when it comes to choosing a company or whoever to buy the gear. So I hope everybody's doing good. Let's see. Sorry, just trying to stay on top of the comments here. So hope everybody's doing good, getting ready for spring. All you guys that are going outdoors, I know you got a lot going on. The weather's starting to turn, and I wish I had a greenhouse or something, but it's all indoor for me. Blue Magoo's looking great. Fourth cycle, our no-till beds. We're just chugging along. It's definitely looking like an early pheno. It started stacking really early, started putting on the trikes early, and right now the smell is just, it's wonderful. It's like a fruity cotton candy, really, really nice. So let's see. So let's talk about what I consider kind of the problem with the breeders that we see now. And I would love to kind of hear, I'm hoping that, you know, THC Titan or any of these other people, MedFit, some of these guys that I know are doing well with their breeding, and they're breeding solid genetics. Because this is the thing, is that cannabis in and of itself is a relatively simple plant to grow. We all know that. Literally, you could put a clone or a start in a pot of shitty ass fucking low potting soil and piss in it for a season. In the end, you'll have buds. It'll yield buds, and you could smoke those buds. And somebody would smoke those buds in this world and be like, damn, that's great. So it's relatively easy. When I say it's easy to grow cannabis, it's fucking easy to grow cannabis and get a finished product. Now, whether it's a finished product that you as a consumer are going to be happy with, that's another thing. But it could be done. And so in the same way, you could breed. So you could just have an accidental pollination and get some beans and fucking spread them out and be like, woo, these are called fucking such and such or whatever. And you're doing a disservice to everybody. You're doing a disservice to the plant itself. You know, some people might say that's a little extreme, but I think what's happening, and I've said this a lot, you might recognize it from my IG posts or whatever, but these basement breeders or these single cross breeding guys are fucking diluting our plant, fucking it up. And so the more funky ass genetics going out there, people cloning from it, and then people are taking those fucking single cross beans and doing their single crossings. And next thing you know, we've just got more shit than good. and it becomes increasingly more difficult to find stable strains and to find strains that have their natural disease and insect resistance mechanisms in place. So when I say breeding, that's the simple fucking piss in the pot method, is to just cross it one time and spread, just kind of like no observation skills happening whatsoever, no discerning, what traits you want to perpetuate, right? So to me, breeding, and I'm not a breeder, this is just my master of nothing layman's understanding of the breeding process, as I've been told and learned from people who do breed, that it takes time, that you literally, and there's a basic understanding that it takes place here. You don't have to be a master to wrap your head around something, right? So when you want to create a new strain, this is how I think that should happen. And it is happening in with reputable companies. Is that you take a mother and a parent genetic genes and you mix them together, you do your first cross, right? So you've got a Bubba Kush and a OG Kush or something, right? And you want to cross those together. Those first beans, that first crossing is not marketable material. So you're going to get a wide variety of phenotype variants in that first cross, because you might get lucky with one or two and get a winner. But if you want to create a stable strain that has the same smell, the same nodal spacing, the same growing patterns, the same ripening time, you got to pop all those beans from that first cross, pick a male and a female out of there, or one of those out of there that you want that has the genes that you want to perpetuate, right? So whether you want to keep it in the same line or introduce something else at that point, you're always culling through the new batch. So you've grown the plant out, flowered it, seen which ones you like, how they flower, which ones are flowering early or long or have a more sativa dominance, and then you're going to pollinate those. So it takes time. You got to run the whole cycle. You got to see how the plant matures in order to figure out which of those phenotypes you're going to want to try to perpetuate. And then, that second cross, you got to grow those out again and pick that plant. You got to pick the ones with the genes or the traits that you want to perpetuate. And you can see that this takes time. So 1, 2, 3, 4 crossings, that's a year. You're talking a year or more of just kind of crossing for stability and to strengthen the certain traits that you want to perpetuate. Now, like I said, this is my perpetual disclaimer here that this is my basic understanding. I don't breed. I've never bred before, but this is my understanding of how that process is supposed to go down. So after multiple successive crossings, flowerings, and pairings, you should eventually reach a point where your beans are pretty stable, where you could get a 10-pack to somebody, and out of that 10-pack, your phenotype variance is going to be relatively tight if you've done a good job, which means, the first and seventh bean to pop in there should be relatively close, should have the same terp profile. You shouldn't have to really worry too much. And I know that's part of the joy of pheno hunting, but in my mind, a good breeder has been able to really narrow that variance, that phenotype variance, to where when you get a pack of seeds from somebody, you're going to get that strain that you were wanting, or a really close proximity within the phenotype variance of that strain. So grease monkey is always going to be grease monkey, and so on and so forth. So anyway, sorry, got sucked into the chat. What I think the problem lies now is that we've got people on Instagram and on YouTube. I've seen some really crazy shit. Supposedly organic channels with live streams, and the dude is smoking cigarettes, Marlboro Reds, in his gross with his tents behind him and shit. And he's got an organic tag on his channel name. There's a lot of this kind of weird, buzzword. People are just think they know what they're doing, or I don't know what's going on. But these same type of people are they don't have a solid room. Their bloom rooms are a wreck, and now they're breeding too. So that's another thing I wanted to touch on, that if you want to even consider breeding, you've got to know cannabis. You got to know how it grows. You got to know the pitfalls. You got to know what's a desirable growing trait and what's not. So if you haven't been a successful cultivator, and I mean cultivate, because to cultivate is to refine. If you look at the textbook definition of cultivation, it means to refine. And that's what we want to do. And that's definitely what a breeder wants to do, is he wants to refine that genetic potential of the crosses that he has, right? So we want to step away from this grower mentality. Anybody could be a grower, but do we want to cultivate? Do we want to refine the craft? Do we want to refine the plant and the material that we're working with? If that's the case, then you're a cultivator. You know, you need to actively cultivate your material as opposed to just being a grower. So we should get into the proper mindset. You know, if you haven't been cultivating and you've been just growing, breeding isn't for you. You're going to do the plant, you're going to do the world a disservice. Now, we all need to start somewhere, but don't send your tester beans out. Like I've seen it on IG, Cyan Seeds or something. And I know I wasn't going to put anybody on blast, but it's on there. They're giving away seeds of one of their crossings, and they even said on there right now, we've never popped these. So it's like a disclaimer. We've never popped these beans, so we don't know what's going to happen, you know. And they just had a post about having hermaphrodites and all this other stuff. So to me, that's a big red flag, you know. Like if they haven't ran any tests themselves and they're willing to just start throwing seeds out, that needs to be a thanks and no thanks situation, you know. A situation. Sometimes seeds, and I've always been hesitant to pop beans from people that they say are testers, with the exception of a handful of folks that I've seen with their genetics look proven and look great, and they were on point, like THC Titan and Square One Genetics, Medically Fit. I took some of their beans on, and they're definitely getting thrown in the rotation. But other people, you know, you gotta treat seed stock, you know, like it could be a potential nightmare. You don't want to waste time and resources on somebody's beans if you don't know exactly where they came from, you know. So untested beans don't mean anything negative necessarily. That's true, One Thumb. He's saying untested beans don't mean anything negative. I don't know if he was talking about like testing them out. Sorry, man. I took a big dab, so I'm a little spaced out. I don't dab usually. Right. So yeah, so anyway, if you guys have anybody that you've had negative interactions with, or beans people that you definitely know are not putting out stable genetics and they're trying to start something or company or whatever, make sure you let the people know around you who's who, and even put so in the chat if you've had a bad experience with people. Put that info here on the chat, and make sure that we're being open with the bads that are happening in the community too, so we can stop some of these knuckleheads in their tracks, you know. And I think they mean well, but you know, we got to stop it anyway. So let's see. So yeah. So anyway, we kind of started talking about the Living Soil Symposium a bit on my last live feed that got cut short, and I just wanted to reiterate how like moved I was by the Dragonfly Earth Medicine presentation. And I don't know if the Living Soil Symposium website is going to have any of these talks or all of them up on their site. I know I remember hearing something about them putting them up on their channel or something. So if you get a chance, and if that makes it up there, all of the speakers were great, but Dragonfly Earth Medicine, their story is pretty incredible. I'm sure plenty of you are familiar with it. They were really, really inspiring and worth the trip and the price of admission just for them alone. And but like I said, I think the big thing that I took away from there was hugelkultur, and how amazed I was at how, with that paired with permaculture design, you literally never have to water it, and it lasts a very long time. So you have to kind of redo it, and eventually it works down. But even then, you're left with just beautiful, rich, humus-filled soil. And yeah, I think that's something I'm pretty stoked about implementing on property or whatever, these hugelkulturs. So anybody have any questions for me or anything like that? Like I said, I think this is going to be the last live stream I do. At first, I had a lot of direction and a lot of oomph and drive to get kind of the no-till info out, and I felt like I got as much of the minimalist info out that I could get. And now it would be just kind of scrambling for topics and ideas, and it's really not my thing. I'd much rather come prepared and have good solid presentation, so I'm not winging it. I feel like I'm sitting here saying a million times. But anywho, I did want to do a channel shout out to Joint Venture TV. They let's see, we've been chit-chatting and sending messages back and forth quite a bit, and I've just yet to kind of give them a proper shout out. And it's good to see them back on and kind of hitting it hard. So definitely check them out. There's lots of really good information. They highlight kind of the up and coming channels and ones that have good, valuable info. So yeah, I also want to kind of hear back from anybody that's gotten screens from the Dry Sift Wizard. Dry Sift Wizard screens, any of them. I purchased some recently and waiting on them, and kind of new to that whole process. So anybody that's got any info or experience with the dry sift tech, DM me or hit me up. I'd love to kind of pick your brain. Seven Finger Ox is asking what my take is on bag seed. I've always been of the impression to just kind of did not go with them, because they're usually unintentional and most definitely came from a hermaphroditic plant. Typically, I mean, really, we don't live kind of in the air unless you're in like Trinity or Humboldt, where there's a high concentration of people growing. Even then, nobody's growing a male out outside. So it was a female that popped a nut sack, so it's by its nature, in my mind, going to be kind of a flawed, pseudo-feminized, weird seed in its own right. So that being said, I've known lots of people that have popped bag seeds, and then the smoke was fucking phenomenal. So you just kind of got to walk into it knowing that it's more than likely genetically flawed, because if it came in the bag, it was probably, a hermaphrodite situation that caused that to happen. So bag seeds, not necessarily bad, just tread cautiously, and you could find a winner for sure. Iceberg Slim, hey man, I really appreciate the encouragement. That my whole purpose of this was to just kind of help people not have to reinvent the wheel and do the kind of the volume of research that I had to do, and which I think is healthy for folks. But really, if I could create an avenue with a quicker learning curve, or at least to get people thinking, in the right direction, and then kind of they can put it all together themselves, then I feel like it's worth my time and effort. So I really appreciate the encouragement. Anytime anybody says it's helped, it makes me feel good. It makes all this kind of weird awkwardness seem worth it. So let's see. Okay, I'm being asked about a quick question with tea versus top dress. As far as like introducing nutrients or whatever, I tend to like the top dress for my nutrients and minerals, and I use teas for to kind of give a kickstart to the microlife. So when it comes to nutrients and minerals, I definitely prefer top dress. I haven't done really any teas or anything like that. I will do a kelp foliar early veg, all through veg, and a couple weeks in early bloom, just to kind of kickstart, just to keep that exudate process going. And if you haven't not familiar with that, you want to check back some of the other live streams where we talk kind of in depth of the exudate process and how foliar feeding contributes to the quality of exudate. Right, it's going to happen regardless, but the foliar feeding just kind of helps boost it up, so your microlife really is kind of supercharged at that point. Let's see. Bill's asking about any cups this year. Yeah, we actually entered into the Washington Dope Cup, which is going down on the 23rd. We put our entry in a few weeks ago. We did some low temp rosin of the Grease Monkey, and we're just doing a single entry, and we're going against some heavy hitters, Polar Ice Tracts from Washington State. I don't know, that the guy there was the manufacturer, one of the distributors of the hard press, which is actually the unit I use. And they put in multiple rosin entries, and they're no joke. You know, they're pressing no-till material as well. But I feel really good about the Grease Monkey. You know, and I've tried their material too, and I think we got a shot. You know, so if I took second or third or even lost to those guys, it's not it's not the end of the world, because they're a good solid crew and they're putting out a good solid product. But that being said, I think the Grease Monkey, I got something special, and we got as good a shot as any. It's a blind test, so the terps are there and the test results are right. You know, we could take it home. So I feel pretty good about it. Good enough that we, you know, ponied up the $350 entry fee to do it. You know, and so, and it'll be a good solid win if we go up against a 502 that's put in multiple entries. You know, I'm down for a little bit of competition. So. We're looking forward to the Dope Cup in a couple weeks or a week or so. When I say low temp, how low? I think the entry that I sent in, we pressed at 160 degrees Fahrenheit for 90 seconds or so, and I do about a 10 or 15 second pre-press on the machine, so it was almost 2 minutes. So yeah. Things with the kombucha business have been slowly progressing. We finally found a lab in Portland that does the gas chromatography. We were getting false high readings on our alcohol levels, and so we had to go find a lab that could actually get an accurate test result through the sediment of the kombucha. So, you know, we're inching closer. Ilgil's asking if you could see some of my rosin or rosin tech process. Yeah, dude, absolutely. I think I've been thinking about doing a live, kind of a Instagram live deal where when I'm pressing next, just so people could see the process and how I'm going through it. Because once the bags are stuffed, this hard press is so nice. It's literally push button. It's quiet, and we get solid, consistent results every time. So like if my sample press yielded me 23%. It's going to yield 23% the whole time. We'll get within 0.2 of a gram within every press, you know. So I feel really confident. And I've done 20, 30 pounds of material on this machine with no issues. So I'll definitely do that. Oh, Medically Fit. Yeah, I seen that Dago was live, but that's cool. It's all good. I'm not trying to step on his toes. I kind of tried to schedule this up a little bit, but yeah, man, it's all good. How many vids on T? I don't EC Canada. I don't have any vids on T, to be honest with you, and that's a really good. You make a really good point. It would be nice to have a simple T vid, and maybe I'll do that here in the weeks to come. But I make it so infrequently that it's really not even kind of part of my thought process. It happens right before or right after I put the new plants in the bed after harvest to try to kickstart the microlife. That's the only time I'll apply a T. 160 is the lowest you've heard so far. I've actually seen some people pressing at like 130, 140, but the yields are so crazy low. You know, even at 160, I feel like we're sacrificing a bit, but the quality is just the instant butter. Let's see. What press am I using at the moment? I don't know if KC Labs is asking me that. I'm using the hard press, the dual ram hard press. Little spendy, but so it's paid for itself the first time I used it. Yeah. Really excited about the Blue Magoo. It's looking incredible. We've got the smell is just great, and being so early in flower, I'm really hoping for a 55 day or something, which would be just great, because it took me a minute to get plants in, so I'm a couple weeks behind schedule. I don't like doing that. Nothing to flush. Sorry guys, I'm trying to catch up on the chat. But yeah, if you guys wanted to see any of the rosin that I've been pressing or any of that, you can check out my Instagram. There's should be a link on YouTube. I think they're kind of paired or whatever. So oh, the one random. Somebody's asking about the one random. That plant's looking great. It's just different. It has no smell yet. No smell. So I'm thinking that it's definitely going to be a sativa dominant or something. It's got a good stretch to it, and I don't know. We'll see. It's hopefully it's good enough to keep for head stash for me or something, because I hate having, half pound or something, or a QP, some kind of off shit. It drives me crazy. Somebody's asking about Seven Finger Rocks asking about the sativa or indica press better. I don't know. I've only been pressing basically hybrids for the most part, so I can't speak to that like with any confidence. I think I'd have to have some pure sativas and some like Granddaddy Perp. And to be honest with you, the Granddaddy Perp that I grew, which is definitely pure indica, pressed horribly. I got just terrible yields from it. And the Grease Monkey has been the best so far. Bubba Kush did pretty good too. So, I don't know. That's a really good question. I wouldn't mind seeing it. Oh, somebody talking about that roller press. That shit looks crazy. So crazy. Can Mojave Dude 250 is asking, can a cannabis plant get tobacco mosaic virus? What are the signs? Can it recover? Now, I'm really glad you're asking this, because I actually had this same question about a year or so ago, and I reached out to Tad at Keep It Simple Farms here in Washington through Instagram, and I sent him some pictures of plants that I had that had that mottled look or variegated discoloration on the leaves, and kind of weird asymmetrical leaf growth with weird curving going on. And I asked him, because that's the first thing when you look that up, is that tobacco mosaic virus. And he reached out to his buddy who is a horticulturalist, and he got back to me with an Instagram message basically saying that cannabis cannot get tobacco mosaic virus. He's never heard of it, never seen it, and that it just like basically doesn't fit. It's a square peg in a round hole. But what'll happen is that you can get plants that naturally variegate that make it look like to that mosaic virus. And you also have broad mite and russet mite damage, which can do very similar damage to the leaves. It can cause stress that will cause that mottling to occur. And so that's basically how this guy was during my Bubba Kush grow. They actually diagnosed the broad mites and gave me the remedy with the Cucumaris and Andersoni mites to get rid of them, and it worked. And so it was definitely the broad mites that were causing. And he said that even as few as 5 of those microscopic broad mites on a leaf can cause that stress to cause the mottling to occur and that weird variegated discoloration to occur. So my understanding from a horticulturalist and consultant in the industry said that it doesn't happen, it can't happen, that it's a kind of a misnomer, and that if you have that happening in your plant, it's either a natural variegation that's happening, which is known. I know that some OGs are known to do that, or some other strains are known to kind of have this kind of camouflaging mottling occur from certain stresses. But other times it can be because of broad mites. So if you have that, check your underside of your leaves, check for broad mites. That's could be the culprit. But my understanding is that you cannot get that tobacco mosaic virus, TMV, in cannabis. So see you later, Fit. Man, thanks for popping in, brother. Anywho, yeah, like I said, I feel kind of bad because I don't really have any structure here, and I don't know. Or I guess we could just sit and chill. But I'd much rather have solid info and kind of not waste your guys' time just sitting around fucking bullshitting. But so yeah, I'll look, and if you guys have any more messages, just feel free to hit me up. Do you like to use Grokashi EC Canada? Yeah, I actually do, and that's one of the things that I'll top dress from time to time. I don't have any schedule, and I don't, I just kind of just go with my gut. And if I know it's been a while since I've used a Grokashi, I'll order some up. I don't always have it on hand. I used the bulk of what I had getting ready for our outdoor veggie garden this year. And so, but I do love the product Grokashi. I definitely like. I always get a nice mycelium layer when I lay it out on a top dress with it, and I think it's definitely one of those good amendments to have on hand for sure. And I like how it smells. I almost want to put it in milk and eat it or something. Smells like grape nuts or something weird. Anyway. Man, I feel like there was something else I wanted to talk about, and I'm spacing on it. Oh yeah, I did kind of want to talk about just kind of maybe I'll get on a soapbox here a little bit and talk about the way we conduct business, and especially on my page. Look, I'll be on my channel, like on the comment section. I'm the first person to light into somebody who's acting crazy or just saying stupid shit. I have a short fuse when it comes to just idiotic shit, and so if somebody comes on my page and says something dumb, I'll light into them, and I know that it produces kind of bad vibes and shit, and so I try to keep that in check. And what I'm just kind of asking and appealing to you guys' kind of more civilized nature. If you disagree with somebody, if somebody's bringing a point, and maybe they're not exactly, maybe they're being curt or very to the point, it's really hard to gauge somebody's emotional content on a message on YouTube. So when somebody's got something to say, and it's kind of, maybe you disagree with it, or you agree with it, but you don't like the delivery. But all their intent is to deliver information, and if it seems kind of forward or harsh, that's cool, man. We want that dialogue to take place. So don't like light right into somebody and tell them to fuck off or whatever, right? Because unless if they're deserving, right? I'm all for telling people to piss off and get the fuck out of here if they're deserving. But if somebody is just if somebody's bringing information out and they're just like, sure of themselves or very forward, I don't think there's anything necessarily wrong with that. And we need to allow people, I want to allow people to openly express themselves, because I've learned a lot of shit from people in my comment section, and I don't want to stifle that, and I don't want it to end up being a place where it's just a big fucking weird pissing contest in the comment section. So I'll shut up about that. I think we're all on the same page. I just would like to ask for a little kind of more respect for those deserving, and keep grinding on the ones that don't deserve it. So that's just all I got to say about that. Let's see. Yeah, we need to act like adults. That's true. And I'm the first one, and I've regretted it a lot. And I'm gonna say right now, there's one particular YouTube guy. I'm sure he's gonna watch, because I know that I know that goes down, and I'd love to bury the hatchet. So I'll reach out to the people that I need to mend fences with, and kind of start over with them, because everybody deserves a second chance. And sometimes I'm quick to just fucking cut somebody off if they just come across like a dick, with no valuable information, and just kind of blah, 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 and I'll fucking hammer down and just cut them off and then burn a bridge. And then I don't necessarily want to burn bridges. So that being said, I think you know who you are. I'll reach out and let's mend some fences. All right. Yeah, titty lover. Much respect, brother. Much respect. Definitely. No, you're all good, man. No more apologies. Everything's good. We all, yeah, man. We're golden. Anywho. EC Canada asking if I had a worm farm. I did, and I'll be honest with you. I was having some issues with it becoming just kind of too soupy and weird, and I just kind of gave up on it as winter was coming, and I just incorporated the worms into my beds and thought that I would do a little more research, because I kind of just half-assed did one and didn't put the time in to really researching and doing it right. And I know worm farms are relatively simple, but for some reason I just kind of allowed mine to get weird, and I just didn't. I need to spend more time learning about that craft. But as it stands right now, my beds are just constant worm bins anyway. Like, you can reach in and grab a handful, and there's half a dozen worms in every handful. You pull back my mulch layer, it looks like I just sprinkled earthworm castings on the top of my bed, and that's all from the worms doing their thing. In my next video, I'll get in there and show you guys. It's pretty incredible. It looks like I've got a quarter-inch thick layer of earthworm castings, and I haven't applied any at all. So it's just kind of the natural process going down. Welcome Home is asking about if we need to water to runoff with no-till. No, and actually that's actually one of the huge benefits. And now that we're starting to see the commercialization of cannabis and these larger grows come on, this is what I try to tell people who are getting ready to do big grows, is that you don't want runoff. So you can actually save water. You can actually advertise yourself as being regenerative and with conservation practices, water conservation practices, because you literally just keep the beds evenly moist. If you overwater, if you've got runoff in a no-till bed, that's your biology running out the bottom of your pots and running down the drain. So everything that you've worked so hard, or that you've allowed nature to establish, you're fucking up and literally pissing down the drain with water by too much water flooding in, right? So, and then not to mention the problems that can occur if that's happening on numerous occasions, the bud rot and botrytis and all that other stuff that's going to happen. So you definitely are pushing for zero runoff whatsoever, and you just want a constantly evenly moist bed, and that's where the blue mat drippers just fucking save the day. I mean, I've been running my blue mats for a year solid, and just no problems whatsoever. Shout out to a good breeder, Ozzy J is asking, and I'm the good breeders are the ones that are verified. And I know some of you guys may have had different experience, but so far everything I've done through exotic genetics has been on fucking fire. Everything. I mean, everything. And so, I don't know if anybody else has had an ill experience with them, but they've been just super. The kin Ken Estes. I can't remember what his company was, but if you can get Ken's original Granddaddy Purple, I think they renamed it Ken's Granddaddy Perp. But if you can find any of his actual seed stock, that shit's incredible. And I like DJ Short as well. You know, Archive Seed Bank is another one of those. Crockett Family Farms. Those are the ones that I'm always ready to, you know, have no problem popping their beans. And I'm really looking forward to cracking these Square One genetic beans. And I know there were testers that they sent me a while back, but I really wanted to do them justice. To be, in all honesty, my bedroom has just been a nightmare, and I need to just spend the time to upgrade it to where I have. Because really, I just take cuts, and then as soon as they're rooted, they go into my beds for the most part. Is what we've been trying to do. Welcome Home's asking if you lift the straw to water in the no-till beds or just water through. You just water through. You don't lift it at all. And then I just like when I defoliate a little or clean up the bottom undercarriage, I'll just drop that material right on top of the straw as well, and then it'll dry and break up and sift its way down through the material, the hay, and make its way to the bottom into the humus layer. And so it's really, you don't have to do much. It's really set it and forget it. And as little as you can disturb that the soil, it's the better. You know, I think you just allow those natural processes to take place. DJ Short Blueberry is great. I mean, I think that's why I really like this Blue Magoo. I've got Rosaberry, which is the DJ Short Blueberry times ACDC is a high CBD strain. I'm looking forward to getting that going here soon too. Mojave Dude's asking about the benefits and disadvantages of running clones and seeds outdoors. And my main understanding and my main belief is that with the seed outdoors, you've got the taproot, and that's going to allow a deeper penetration. And I think I've heard guys like Mendo Doe say something to the effect of that, you know, a clone plant will definitely yield less than a seed plant. And I'm wanting to say they were saying something like 20% less or whatever. So, and then I think that is strictly because of that, the difference in the way it sets a root. You know, if, that's just my basic understanding. But other than that, you know, the plant will grow. Yeah, Ozzy J saying seeds get bigger for sure. It just only shows to make sense. It only makes sense that you know, that tap root and everything that's all the tributaries that come off that are gonna provide a certain amount of stability, a certain amount of drought resistance, and all those kind of things. So Blunt Thumb agrees. That's good. I value your opinion, brother. So right on. Nice to know. Kind of on track. Urban Grows, new to the channel and the no-till style growing. Right on. Well, welcome, man. And the no-till thing really became a no-brainer for me after just years and years and years of growing and checking my parts per million and checking my pH. What sold me was originally Subcool's like super soil, and I did a mix of that, and what sold me was that I didn't have to pH the water. And I was like, what? I just didn't fucking believe it. I just didn't believe it. And, you know, I had a decent run. My numbers were weird because my vapor pressure deficit was off after getting a new mini split. But I knew the plants were healthy from that. I wasn't having any water or pH related issues. That I had just had stunted growth that came from it being too dry. So that's what really sucked me into this whole no-till kind of world. It was super soil, and then I was like, hey, wait a minute, I don't have to mix this shit all the time and cook it. I can just like build the soil, and there it is. I was sold. Anyway. Somebody still has seeds, blueberry seeds from the 90s. Man, those were some killer phenos back then. It's really crazy color and flavor. No, it's funny. Urban Grows. Yeah, I just touched on the pH. It's not necessary, and actually, it's not recommended because whatever the agent it is that you're using to pH the water is going to be negatively affect your microlife. So what we're really doing is we're allowing the soil to adjust the pH kind of on its own, which it's more than equipped to do when you've provided all the necessary elements for that food soil web to function properly and efficiently. It'll pH the water for you. Oh, shit. I just spilled my booch. All right. Well, I don't know, fellas. I think we can wrap her up. Do the blue mats work decent with harder well water or running seed sprout teas, etc. through them? I've ran occasional like the malted grain tincture from Mountain Organics. I've ran that through my blue mats. I've got fairly hard water as well, and I only use a carbon filter. I don't RO filter, and I don't have any issues. I don't even have like the calcium built up on the drippers or anything, which I think is just kind of a testament to the food soil web just grabbing all that calcium up. I mean, it's not precipitating on the outside of my pots or any of that. So that's a really good indicator after a year that the beds are properly processing that extra calcium and the hard minerals that are in the water. So so far so good. I haven't had any signs or indications of calcification on my blue mats. Hilltop Hermit, what's up? Thanks for checking in, man. I'm glad you could check in live. I feel like I'm just kind of blabbing about nothing, so welcome. Oh, okay. Ginger Russ is asking if I ever test the beds after harvest to kind of see what we need to amend and what not. I don't. I haven't, and to be honest with you, that's the ideal way to go about it. You definitely like more data. Data is the friend of consistency when you're properly observing what's happening, right? So I would have to say that would be 100% desirable. I've just kind of been negligent in doing so because the plants look good. I've been just kind of doing a blanket re-amend. But if you wanted to pinpoint and just do like concentrated little strikes on what you need, by all means, that's exactly what you should do. And I've done a couple consultations, and we did that after the first run. We planted nitrogen fixers as companion plants, and I was working with somebody who was really kind of skeptical of the no-till system, skeptical of the companion plant system and whatnot. He was a conventional farmer gone cannabis farmer because he saw a margin, right? We know there's been a million of them. So we did a soil test after our first run, before when we got the soil, and then afterwards, and our nitrogen levels were higher. And so there's a bunch of things that actually showed that the soil had improved after that just one cycle. So you bring up a really good point. I think at some point in time it would be really wise to just do it and just send the sample in, because then you might be able to see trends, and you could definitely become more effective and efficient in your reamendment strategies. Whereas I might be doubling up on stuff. I might be spending more money every year that I don't necessarily need to if I'm only needing to amend certain things. So you bring up a great point. Liquid dolomite, I don't know enough about it, so I really can't speak on that. So I don't want you to think I'm ignoring your question. If I don't know, I'm gonna say I don't know. Liquid dolomite, I couldn't tell you. Somebody's asking, with no-till being so easy, what do you think of using our no-till skills as a gardening business marketing to home growers? Yeah, I think that's kind of what we're seeing already. And I don't know if you mean home cannabis growers or just like home cultivators in general, like with their regular gardens. Maybe clarify on that for me, because I really think you're onto something, and it's something that I've been thinking about quite a bit, about finding ways to introduce this cultivation style and practice to like community gardens and to school projects and whatnot, and really get people to realize that they could cultivate just like the material that I'm cultivating has been the best material I've ever personally grown through the no-till way. The highest terpene profile expressions, the easiest, the best looking plants I've ever grown has been this no-till. So, and it works the same with veggies, like the tomatoes we grew last year. We grew hundreds of pounds of tomatoes. I had 17 tomato plants last year in a huge 2-foot deep no-till bed, and it was overwhelming. It was crazy. So, and the flavor and the nutrient, I'm sure they were nutrient dense. So, if that's what you're talking about using it as a business model to just try to convert as many people to grow their gardens no-till, to bring these kind of old new approaches, back to the forefront, and fucking shut down the garden center at Lowe's, or at least fucking alter it, right? I think you like helping cancer patients find and help sell the no-till. Yeah, for sure. I mean, anywhere where you can increase the medicinal value, or ensure, not increase necessarily, but ensure the medicinal value of cannabis, I think there's a value there. For people who are taking it for illnesses and whatnot, no-till is definitely a very good selling point, and makes it very attractive to people who are really concerned about what's happening, environmental toxins and whatnot. Seven Finger asking about a hugelkultur indoors with no-till beds. I don't see why not. I think, but part of the system with those hugelkulturs is that you're relying on moisture, atmospheric moisture, and groundwater and whatnot to keep the center part of that hugelkultur moist. So you would have to you would lose a certain principle of it by bringing it indoors without the natural kind of water and rain happening. So you'd lose that certain functionality of it. But as long as you kept it moist and kept it going, I don't see any reason why it wouldn't work. Tony Baloney, will you plant tomatoes in the same beds this year, or something different? We're going to plant tomatoes in the same beds for sure. We might move them to a different spot, rotate this kind of the spots in the bed. It's a really large, 8 by 16 by 2 or something. So we've got quite a bit of space, and we pack it in there country garden style, and we don't leave much room. Surprise daily. Dude, breed by all means. Breed. Just don't hand out the beans to people until you're ready, until you know they're ready, or the people are damn sure certain know that they're not going to be giving them out to people, because that's how you pass out PM prone plants and spider mite prone plants, and Hermes is the big one. EC Cam is asking if I recommend beds or large size pots, and I've used this analogy before in the past, and I'll try to be brief because I'm sure a lot of you have heard it already. But the bigger container the better, and that's just because it's easier for the microlife to stabilize itself in a large container. If you've got a 1 gallon fish tank, the fish in it and biology happening in there, it can get out of balance really quick. If the fish just starts shitting a lot in that water and you don't get it changed, or there's not enough airflow in there, the pH swing will happen really fast, and the system will crash fast. If you had those same fish in a 100-gallon tank, it would never have a crash, because the system, there's enough water to kind of stabilize it. So it's a similar situation. If you're in a small pot, you're more susceptible to incidental random dryouts and other kind of weird shit, and the roots are confined to that little space. And if you're in a big container, your roots will travel and converge and merge with the one next to it, and so you'll get this kind of entanglement happening, and you'll get one big mat, and damage or necrosis, or you get an acidic pocket in your bed there because moisture sat there for too long in that little spot. It's less detrimental than if you in a big 4x8 bed than if you had a 20-gallon container, because now the percentage of volume of soil that's affected is going to be greater in that littler container, if that makes any sense. All right, guys. I keep kind of hinting that we're going to close it up, but I think this is probably a good time to close it up. If I think of, or a new live stream topic comes up, I'll probably pop on and we'll do one. But just start looking for more frequent YouTube videos. And if you guys just desperately have a topic that you want to see live or chat live about, or you think it would be beneficial to kind of have this dialogue, then let's, by all means, hit me up on the DM. If you start to see decreased activity on Instagram, or if I'm not getting back to people as rapidly as I normally do, hit me up on YouTube. Odds are that I've just kind of dipped off of IG for a bit and taking it off my phone. I'm removing a lot of shit off my phone as to not fragment my attention anymore. I think I'll kind of leave with this, that there's an important aspect to success that has to do with your ability to stay concentrated on something. And more and more in our society, we're being bombarded with things that pull us away from the now, that distract us from our concentration, that fragment the now, that fragment our thinking. And so I think that was kind of happening with me and the shit on my phone, just getting a million different messages and alerts and all this other shit that just, even with the notifications turned off, I'd wonder, be like, oh, did somebody send me that email or whatever? So I'm really trying to be more mindful with my usage of this technology now, and really be mindful that I'm not fragmenting, my concentration, fragmenting the now, as it were. So my effort in doing so will be to kind of step back from the social media tab and just only access it at night. So once again, whereas I've been pretty easy to get a hold of and I'll respond to people really fast, in the coming days and weeks, that's probably going to change, and just expect to hit me up on the DM on YouTube, and we'll get to it that way, or on comments on the messages. So, all right, guys, good stuff. Let's see. All right, guys. Hey, I'm out of here. We could just ramble on forever. Thanks for checking in. Thanks for your patience. And thanks a lot for your guys' continued support and encouragement. And as long as I feel like what I'm offering is value to the community, I'll keep doing it. So thanks a lot, fellas, and have a wonderful rest of your weekend. Peace.